Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about what types each personality should date. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions on the internet about this subject. Don't mind Pumpkin and Henry in the background. I have personally seen where people either box themselves, where they'll be like, oh, I only want to date this type person, this personality type. Or they'll say, oh, I'm an intuitive, so I can't date a sensor, or I'm a sensor, so I can't date an intuitive. This is just simply not true. I definitely was on the bandwagon when I first started typology that sensors and intuitives were probably not a good match. And that is just, I guess in my mind, I have learned that that's kind of not doing all of the types justice. Sensors and intuitives can have a good relationship, whether that is a romantic relationship or a friendship, and vice versa. I think that people get so caught up in websites that claim that, let's say, for example, I'm an INFJ, not an INTP. But let's say as an INFJ, I look up what are the best types for INFJs. And I'll look online and it'll say ENTPs, INTP, ENFP, the list will go on. And they'll have varying levels of degrees of how they get along with one another. And specifically with, let's say, the ENFP, it says, oh, it's the same order of the functions except for the functions are reversed. So instead of leading with introverted intuition like the INFJ does, the ENFP leads with extroverted intuition. This is just, I do not feel like this does any good. I think it just divides people, and it closes off people from certain personality types. First of all, as I've stated in so many other videos, people mistype all the time. People think that I am mistyped. I am not mistyped. I have mistyped in the future as an ENFJ. I am an INFJ, whether you want to believe that or not. I'm 99.9% sure about that. But that being said, a lot of sensors mistype as intuitives. And so who you may think is Pumpkin. Again, Pumpkin is the disciplinarian in this relationship with little... Hey. Hey. No. I can never be alone in this household. I could never be alone in this household. You're so cute. Okay. Anyways, I don't know what I was saying, but I do know that what really matters is, at least what I found in typology, is, yeah, it can be helpful to know someone's type. I definitely think that's true. And if I'm thinking about personalities and relationships, I'm thinking about socionics with intertype relations. I think that is way more informative than Myers-Briggs on the subject, because Myers-Briggs, I think, has there's a lack of foresight. And in socionics, it goes into every single personality and even their own personality and what kind of relationship those personalities have. But I do have to say, when you get into socionics, I've made this disclaimer so many times, but the P and the J are switched for introverts, and it can be very confusing if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're new to the socionics. So you have to have an open mind about socionics. And also, you don't want to use that for bad. A lot of people will look at the intertype relations in socionics, for example, as an INFJ, and again, in socionics, I would be considered an INFP, same functions, but they use the P instead of the J. My perfect match is an ESTP. That is considered the dual relationship. What I don't want to happen in socionics, or people that are getting into socionics or trying to understand relationships, just like how in Myers-Briggs, people will say, oh, I only want to date intuitives. I don't want people to get into socionics and think, oh, I can only date my dual, or I can only date my quasi-dual, or I can't date this person because they're my supervisor, or what have you. I would say personally, there's no person, really, Henry, I'm trying to film a video. And you come on going near the doors? I don't know if you guys can see this, but he actually plays catch with himself. He'll throw things up and catch them in the air. I don't know if he's gonna do it in the background, but he may. I am personally open to all of the personality types. There's only one personality type that I'm thinking of, and that's the ESTJ, that I think I can have a relationship with romantically. The reason being for the ESTJ, as you get into socionics, you do figure out certain relationships. So one of the worst relationships, it is the worst relationship, is the conflictor relationship. And as an INFJ, INFP in socionics, ESTJ is my conflictor. And I have found from my personal life that I do not get along with ESTJs. I can get along with them to a certain extent, but I can get along with them, but I personally do not prefer that relationship, nor would I intentionally seek out that relationship. Just because, and some people may be like, well, that's hypocritical because you're saying you can date any type. This is a personal choice for me. I personally don't think you should date your conflictor. But that being said, there's another relationship called the superego relationship. And this goes to show as far as sensing types, intuitive types, all that kind of stuff. My sister and I have a superego relationship. She is an ISTJ in Myers-Briggs. I'm an INFJ in Myers-Briggs. INFP in socionics, and she is an ISTP in socionics. That is a superego relationship. This relationship is conflicting in the way that we are diametrically opposed. Even though it may seem that we have a lot of similarities in our tone of voice or our maybe mannerisms, especially if you were to know us from a distance. If you got closer to us, you would realize that we are very, very different from one another. And there are many differences. First of all, our cognitive functions are very different in the way we think. And what bothers me about something may not bother her, and vice versa. And I find that what she thinks is a big deal, I think is really stupid and stuff like that. That being said, we were able to figure out the fact that we did have this superego relationship, and that was how I was able to we were able to type my sister. I just threw it. I threw it. And through that, we actually grew a stronger bond. We were able to become a lot closer and work through a lot of differences because we saw the differences, and it wasn't an easy or one-time conversation, but it was over a period of time we were able to work through that. That being said, on the surface, it may not be the most ideal relationship. Definitely not in socionics or just cognitively, but we were able to work through our differences. And that being said, just because someone may be seen as cognitively perfect, a perfect match for someone, doesn't mean they're going to be a perfect match. At the end of the day, it has to do with your morals, what type of person you are. So if the person you're wanting to date is a bad person, I don't care what personality type they have, I would advise not dating them. Also your personal beliefs, and this kind of goes into morals, and what your life path is. So for example, I've dated all types of personalities, and it really wasn't the personality, as far as cognitive functions go, it wasn't really that had a lot to do with the demise of the relationship. I've dated an ISFJ, an INTJ, an ENTP, and an ESFP. And the reason for those relationships ending were either because of distance. As for the ENTP, he lives in the UK. We dated about a year ago, and I haven't talked about, obviously, my experience dating an ENTP, but it was great. I mean, he's a great guy. I still think he's awesome. But at the end of the day, we were in different areas in our lives. He obviously lives in the UK, and I'm not against long distance, but he wasn't gonna have that much time, and I was doing my own thing in the US, so it just didn't work out. And who's to say maybe it will work out in the future? I don't really think so. I don't really like to, not saying I never will, but I typically do not like to date the same person again, but that's a personal choice. But as far as, let's say, the INTJ, I have talked about the INTJ, and the INTJ I dated, we ended things in December. And the primary reason was, well, I kind of broke off contact with him. But he wanted different things out of life than I did, and I didn't see where our lives were really going to line up, especially in the near future. And we had certain beliefs that I thought were not something I could get behind, and I personally thought that I could do better. And it wasn't because I'm trying to find the perfect guy, we've talked about this before, but it was just more of a moral thing for me. But yeah, so when you're thinking about dating someone, the cognitive functions, it's definitely a good thing to know how cognitively someone's made up, so you can be able to understand that their communication style or their maybe negative qualities or positive qualities, you can kind of understand why they have those certain things. But at the end of the day, don't confuse it with behavioral patterns, because behavior is not the same thing as the cognitive functions. You may meet another INFJ that has completely different behaviors than I do, but it doesn't mean that they aren't an INFJ. But it may mean that you may get along with that INFJ better than me, because maybe your beliefs are more similar. I don't know. But the moral of this story is, please do not box people. Do not think just because you are a certain type that you should only date a certain type. Or, I mean, that's kind of me calling the kettle black, because I do There are certain personality types that I'm more open to. I shouldn't say more open to, but I may be more intrigued to date them than others. But that being said, at the end of the day, it more so matters who someone is. So if they're a good person or if they're a bad person. And again, that's subjective or subjective, whatever. And where they see themselves in life and what their moral values are, that's way more important than if someone is, let's say you have something against INTJs because you think INTJs are evil. They're not all evil. Just like how INFJs are not all saints. There's good and bad of every type. There is the same type that you could get along with. When I go back to, let's say, the ESTJ, who I've said that I personally won't, or I do not see myself dating. I have had pretty decent relationships with the ESTJs. I've never dated one, but for the most part, I try to keep a certain distance from those people. And it's not because they're bad, it's just cognitively, we don't really bring anything to the table for either of each other. So that's a personal choice. I'm not saying that you shouldn't date your conflictor. I guess I kind of am. I just don't think it's the best. But more than anything, I think you should just be open-minded. So I'm so sorry that the squeakiness was in the background. I hope you guys don't mind. This is his little hedgehog. And he is still a puppy, and also they follow me everywhere, don't you, little boys? Also, I took off his collar because it rattles, but yeah. So stay open-minded. Also, be wary in socionics. I want anybody that's getting into socionics to be open-minded. There are a lot of people online, and I hope in the future to clear it up more and more. There are a lot of people online that do not understand socionics, or they have a very limited belief about certain personality types, and I don't advise that. Just use personality theory as a tool, a positive tool. Don't take advantage of it, as in don't manipulate people, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's really up to you. I just know that you can really get along with anybody if certain things are aligned. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will see you later. Bye.